Hey, Tim DeStasio here, Psychrometric Saturday. We've got a lot to cover today. So we've been talking about moisture and humidity, and we introduced the term grains of moisture here recently. That's how we read the actual moisture that's in the air. It's part of the absolute humidity. We could be on the left side of the chart where we read dew point, or we could be on the right side of the chart where we read grains. Either way, they're going to be the same. And it doesn't matter what temperature that we are, because the moisture has nothing to do with temperature when we're talking about absolute humidity. But we said last time that there was a couple of times when you'll actually need to deal with grains of moisture out in the field, either as a diagnostician or a designer. And I'm going to show you one of these today. Well, sensible heat is only part of the heat that's in the air. The other part of heat that's in the air is called latent heat, and that's the heat that's in the moisture of the air. Well, how do we actually read the moisture in the air? Well, we need a tool called a psychrometer. It's also been known as a hygrometer. Both those terms are pretty much interchangeable in our circles. So a psychrometer, like the ones that you see here that I've got from Field Piece, they can read not only temperature and humidity. And once you can read both of those, what it does inside the app is it plots a point in the psychrometric chart, and then it can give you whatever other kind of readings that you need, because again, as long as you know two things, you can plot that point on the chart, just like having a set of crosshairs on a scope. You know where your target is, and then you can get everything else. So let's take an example here using the latent heat formula. We're going to need a psychrometer in our supply grill, and let's say that we're reading 55-degree dry bulb and 55-degree dew point. We've got this in our supply grill. We're going to throw this psychrometer in the return grill, so we're reading 75 dry bulb, 60 degrees dew point. What are we going to do with that? Well, it's going to give us both temperature and humidity. So let's say here's what our temperature was. We've got a 20-degree temperature drop. And that gives us what we need to know in our sensible heat formula, 22,000 BTUs as a result. But then it also is going to give us the drop in grains, or the grains difference. So the latent heat formula tells us that grains of moisture difference times 0.68 times our CFMs is going to give us the latent portion our system is removing. So all we need is our psychrometers. We've already got those in place. The 0.68 stays the same every time. And the last thing we need to read is CFMs. And if you recall, we talked about that has never been easier than it is now with the True Flow Grid from the Energy Conservatory. We put this in the return path, in the return duct, either at the filter grill or in the filter media rack, and we get a CFM. So we have everything we need now for that formula. So if we take our two plotted points, our return was 77 grains, our supply was 64 grains, that's a grains difference of 13. The 0.68 stays the same. The 1,000 CFMs is the same 1,000 CFM that we just measured with our True Flow Grid. We have everything we need. What is our latent BTUs? It's 8840. So let's say that we had a 2.5 ton unit, and we plotted everything we needed to here. We took our airflow readings. We got 22,000 BTUs sensible, 8840 latent. All we have to do is add those two together, and we can see what the total heat that the unit is removing. And in this case, that 2.5 ton unit, when we add 22,000 and 8840, is moving 30,840 BTUs per hour. And that is to be expected of a 2.5 ton unit. That's actually a very well performing 2.5 ton unit. Now, if we were working on a 4 ton unit and we were only getting 30,000 BTUs, we would know we'd have a problem. But it just goes to show how using psychrometrics, a very accurate way of reading airflow with the True Flow Grid, a little bit of math, and we can now start measuring the delivered capacity of any air conditioning system. That is incredibly valuable as you start diagnosing comfort and other problems out in the field. That's all for this time. Stay tuned next time for Psychrometric Saturday.